So this is a new training series that Claremont County is trying to launch. It's called Training Connections. And interesting, our first presenters are from the Connections program. Connections program at Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health. And we have a partnership with Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health. Also, Hamilton County DDS has a partnership with Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health to provide dialectical behavioral therapy to individuals who have intellectual disabilities / developmental disabilities. It is a specialized program with some adaptations to meet the needs of people with many different types of learning styles, who may have problems remembering things, and so there are all kinds of components that are included in this program that may not be included in your sort of typical conventional dialectical behavioral therapy program. But it's also important to note that the Connections program at GCB is bigger, and this is a program that specifically designs therapeutic services for individuals, I would say really with intellectual disability more than anything else. But developmental disability, people who qualify or are eligible for developmental disability services or not, but have some sort of developmental disability in which they provide one-on-one therapy even outside of the DBT format. Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll
All
go
right.
into that.
So before we get into this, I'm wondering, it's pretty small group, so I'm wondering if we can go around and answer 2 questions, all right? What is your name? You know, sort of what's your role, and why is it important for you to be here? I can go to the other here.
I'm Kim Howard.
I don't like talking.
Well, you are working with a woman who might be participating, right? And who is thinking about participating. Yeah.
My name's Karen Gregory.
Yeah.
And likewise, Gordon. I'm Brady Baker, same thing. But I work in the day program where one of our individuals will be participating in this program, so.
Yeah.
My name is Michelle Ingram. I've been working in this field for probably about 8 years now, and it's just easier for me to have the most information I can about everybody that I work with. And I'm just interested in what this could do for our person. This is my life.
And it's important for you to be here because you need a ride to the next place, right? All right.
Unfortunately, I can't stay very long. My doctor appointment.
My name is Tracy Otson. I'm a parent of a child who will be using services. I have to live with them, so I'm here to learn and to help him.
I'm Kelly Kristenoff. I'm an SSA with Claremont County. I'm Christina Bragg. I'm an SSA with Claremont County.
And so Kelly and Christina are co-facilitators, right? With the DBT program.
I'm Katie Bean, another day with Claremont County, and I would like to better serve our individuals and get to know the training.
I'm Debbie Donahue. I'm an SSA with Claremont County, and I'm a co-facilitator for the program.
I'm Sarah Ryan, SSA with Claremont County, and this spills into work and school for me, so I just want as much information as possible.
Jenny Fulton, SSA with Claremont County, and wanting to learn more about the DBT program to better serve the individuals I work with.
John Corse, Behavior Sports Specialist with Hamilton County. I have a gentleman currently enrolled in the Connections program, and I'm trying to identify some specific strategies that he's working with that we can implement.
Rachel Slower, wraparound coordinator for Claremont County, and ironically, I had a few families asking about DBT, and then I got an email from Rachel about DBT training, so that's why I'm here. I know.
And it said 9:30.
It did say 9:30, you have a time on there.
Rachel's got some attention to detail.
My name is Beth Pagano. I'm a provider in Hamilton County for Core Incorporated, and I'm here because trauma-informed care is my latest and greatest passion. So I'm going to learn everything I can.
Okay, and so, yeah, okay, so, and you?
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Alberts. I'm one of the presenters. I'm also the program coordinator and therapist with our Connections program out here in Claremont County. And I also work one day out in Hamilton County, so work with John over here.
Lawrence McNichols, I am the group skills facilitator for the program, and I'll be talking about that a little bit.
And I'm Rachel Pearlstein, and I'm the behavior support coordinator here in Claremont County, but I also sort of help coordinate, or I'm not even sure what that we will call that, but this DBT program, so I come to a lot of the team meetings and try to set up things like trainings like this, and I'm also involved in this whole Training Connections project that we have going on. Okay, come on.
Okay. Well, there's a part there. Do you want to talk about the statistics part? Do you want me to turn it over to you?
No, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
When you come around to it.
When I come around to it.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
There we go. Okay. Thank you for coming out and participating in this training. I'm going to let you know right now, I'm like really, really nervous. So if I flub my words, please feel free to judge me, okay? And when you get the evaluations, like write any comments about my judgments, your judgments, if you want me to know that. I appreciate it. Yes?
We have to leave in about 5 minutes,
Sure.
but all my friends are going to take notes for me.
Perfect.
Everything that I need, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Glad to see you're here.
And we'll be here as much as we can be though.
Excellent, no problems, no problems. All right, so as Rachel had kind of started, we are part of the Connections program, which works specifically with individuals with developmental disabilities. And here is also on your sheet, your Connections sheet, kind of describes our program a little bit. So Connections serves persons with co-occurring mental health and developmental disabilities. Individuals with developmental disabilities experience the full range of psychiatric disorders at rates higher than the general population. So as you guys all know, individuals with developmental disabilities are already a vulnerable population. So, and so for many different reasons, and one of them also being is that they're easily influenced, they need a lot of support and care. So that already makes them a vulnerable population. And then when they are diagnosed, or if they are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, there we go, that makes them even more vulnerable. So so with our program, we like to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. So to get all different systems kind of working together and communicating with each other. The mission of Connections is to close the gap between the mental health system and the developmental disability system by providing effective treatment with qualified professionals to co-occurring MH and DD individuals. So, recovery from mental illness is possible and best accomplished through a combination of psychiatric and psychosocial services while partnering with developmental disability services and families. Services are intended to support recovery, enhance quality of life, reduce symptoms, restore functioning, and support and natural supports. So basically, like I said, we're trying to get two of the bigger systems kind of working together.
And we've been doing this for a while. How long has this program been in place?
I don't know offhand. I know in Hamilton County it's been around a little bit longer. It's fairly new over here in Claremont County. So I want to say at least over in Hamilton County, maybe a little bit more than 5 years or so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably have been doing this in Claremont County for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So it's.
I've been here for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I've been in Claremont County about 5 years.
Yeah.
And we've had, and attendance has ebbed and flowed over the years. I think a lot of it sometimes has to do with just people not knowing about it and knowing that it exists.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this presentation here, is to kind of let other people know about our program and the services that we offer and kind of talk about it a little bit more. So, all right, there we go. Okay, So this kind of breaks down some of just two of the services that we provide. Thank you for coming.
I'll see you guys
See you later.
So these are two of the services that we provide. So DBT is what we're going to be talking about and expanding a little bit more on today. As you can see, the therapy, it requires individual therapy and the skills training group. So both are weekly commitments. And we also offer general therapy, as you can see with the description there. Individuals work with one-on-one with a trained mental health, developmental disability therapist in a safe environment. To explore feelings, beliefs, or behaviors, work through challenging or influential memories, identify aspects of their lives that they would like to change, better understand themselves or others, set personal goals, and work towards desired change. So I'm sure that we all have kind of some of our preconceived notions about what therapy is, thanks of course to media, most part. But it's not, it's not just for a certain individual or certain group of people. I like to tell my clients,
Okay.
I like to tell my clients that people seek out therapy for a wide range of services. It could be anything from communication issues or relationship issues or self-esteem issues, all the way to what we call our SPMI population, or severely pervasively mentally ill. Individuals who might need a little bit more support or a little bit more services around them.
So I also, I think that's very important because, in the DD system, we sit around and we say, can we change that name? Can we take therapy out of that, right? That dialectical behavioral thing, can we take therapy out of it? And I can't tell you how many conversations we've had like this because therapy seems to scare people away. And DBT therapy is a very different beast that involves groups and discussions and sort of really active activities, which you're going to share some today, right? And it's social and it's, I don't know, what?
All these scary things.
It's social and it's interactive and, right, Debbie? I mean, it's all of those things that once there, people really seem to get into, right? Because it's sort of a community while the therapy is going on.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, it's been made very clear to us that we're not allowed to change the name.
Which is what.
But in all reality, there's a reason for that, right? And we might talk a little bit about that.
That's kind of why we discussed kind of breaking down DBT, why it's called DBT, what those words mean, and what those components are, so that it sounds a little less scary. It doesn't sound very daunting. And if somebody says, well, I decided to seek out therapy or I'm engaged in DBT, it kind of decreases that stigma a little bit. So, all right, so DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. So right here, we're just going to kind of go over a little bit of a blurb about the background of DBT. So DBT was founded by Marsha Linehan at the University of Washington in Seattle. So kind of a little bit of the components about DBT. DBT is a cognitive behavioral approach that incorporates some elements of Buddhism, mindfulness, validation, and change-based strategies.
So has anybody heard of mindfulness? Mindfulness, right? It's actually, a very, very common, conventional term, mindfulness. And it's something that people practice when they do yoga. It's something that people practice when they meditate. Prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just, it's something that you do when you walk through the woods. And that's what you're doing. You're just walking through the woods and listening to the birds, right?
Simple concentration.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, it incorporates some of that basic element. We're not trying to teach Buddhism or anything like that. It has nothing to do with anything like that. But it incorporates that specific piece to help somebody to stay focused and stay in the present moment. So, which for some individuals, it's a lot easier said than done. So, but the cognitive behavioral piece is, I'm sure you guys some of you are familiar with cognitive behavior therapy. Does that sound a little familiar? Okay, yeah, even if it's not familiar to you, I'm sure that you've engaged in something like that. So cognitive behavior therapy, the basis of that is incorporating your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors and seeing how they're all related. And so it's a little bit more of a concrete kind of modality. So it's not uncommon for somebody who engages in CBT to have homework or to talk about thinking errors, trying to change and reframe some of the words that they repeat to themselves. So that is the cognitive behavioral piece. And with DBT, it incorporates this mindfulness piece of helping you to stay focused on yourself, how your body feels, kind of like exactly how Rachel described. You know, paying attention to your environment. What's in your environment? How does your environment make you feel? Those kind of elements, and we'll expand on that a little bit farther. So components of DBT are individual therapy, the skills training group, phone coaching, not coaching, don't know what that is, and consultation team. So the individual therapy is exactly how it sounds. The individual meets with a therapist on a weekly basis, so it is a weekly commitment. It is also a weekly commitment for the skills training group, which Mr. Lawrence is going to expand on a little bit further. So phone coaching is another element of that, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And consultation team is when Rachel touched on it earlier about those are our team meetings where we all meet together, the therapist and the skills trainer, some of the co-facilitators, Rachel when she can, when she's not on vacation. She comes and meets with us, and we so she comes and meets with us, and we just.
And this happens every week, so
Yes.
this happens after every single group therapy session. This group meets. At least the co-facilitator, the therapist, the two therapists, is that it?
That's usually it.
At least you guys.
Yeah. So we just discuss factors such as, we always start off with a mindfulness practice. So whatever that may be, somebody might get creative. So, and then we just review any good news that happened with our individual clients. We also discuss the group, what topic was discussed, you know, if anybody did any homework, if they completed their diary cards. And then we end with any tasks or anything else that we need to discuss for the following week. So, excuse me. Go back. There you go, thank you. Originally, this modality was developed with individuals who've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Is anybody familiar with that diagnosis? Okay, so this was originally developed with that particular population in mind, because individuals in this population are very highly impulsive. They engage in some self-harm behaviors, suicidal communication, they make threats, and they have a very hard time regulating their emotions. They have a hard time finding a sense of purpose, a sense of self, and among other things. So this was originally developed with that particular population in mind. And throughout the years, there's been a lot of random clinical trials, a lot of research to show that this modality actually is helpful for individuals with many other varying diagnoses. Also with substance use, it's very helpful with individuals who struggle with substance use among other populations. So cluster B personality disorders, that is the borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, individuals who engage in self-harm, cutting, burning, headbanging, ADHD, PTSD related to childhood sexual abuse, because if you guys are familiar with the BPD population, there is a lot of trauma, and so that is a lot of the underlying cause of some of the behaviors and some of the issues that they deal with.
And just to sort of link this back, there's also there's also a huge number of individuals, a huge percent of individuals who have developmental disabilities who also have trauma history. So,
Well, I have a question.
yeah.
If they have a trauma history, why are they diagnosed with a personality disorder?
It's not.
Not
always-
everybody.
Not everybody.
Not everybody.
Not
This is
everybody.
in addition to
Right,
people
yeah,
with bipolar disorder, in addition to
right.
DBT has also been found to be helpful with people who have also these sorts of difficulties.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So that doesn't mean that somebody who has a significant history of trauma is going to have a personality disorder.
Oh, right, personality.
Yeah, it's just that more often than not, the research has shown that individuals who do have significant trauma tend to also be diagnosed with a personality disorder. That doesn't mean that that's always the case, so, good question. Okay, so yeah, sorry. There we go. Okay, so again, as you can see, it helps. This particular modality isn't just geared towards, and even though initially it was geared towards individuals who were diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, also helps, as you can see, several other populations as well. Yes?
How pre-adolescent are we talking?
That is a really good question. We'll have to look at.
That's a very loose.
Yes, it is. You're right. You're right. So, that is a good question. I'll have to look into that a little bit.
I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a very good question. I don't know if
And I want to say the Connections program, what's your age? It's 18, right?
Yes.
You're sort of
Right.
18 and older,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but Beach Acres does, groups for pretty young kids.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think people, I at least know that kids who have, I think 11, but
Yeah.
that's pretty pre-adolescent, but
late.
who have been through those groups.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how young they'll do that.
Yeah, that's a good question though too, because there's gonna be some developmental things that are gonna come into play and making sure that you cater to that. So,
Even I do mental health therapy, and I have some of my clients are 11, 12,
Right.
and so the skills work.
Right. Okay.
So they work.
Okay.
I'm convinced of that.
this is your.
Oh, yeah, so I did want to share that approximately 1/3 of adults with intellectual disabilities, and this is from a research article, but have emotion dysregulation and display challenging behavior. So I share that just to share that dialectical behavioral therapy may also work for that individual. Because dialectical behavioral therapy is all about teaching emotion regulation, right? It's all about teaching people to recognize their emotions, right? And then employ specific concrete skills, I think, structured concrete skills. Sometimes what we call the skills, which you will see, you might share some of those, right? Is a little bit odd, like there's one called Dear Sir,
Dear Man.
Dear Man, and you're
Yeah.
just, what's that, right?
Yeah.
But it's very concrete, right? It's apply this skill, apply this skill. And I think that's very helpful to many of the individuals that we support. Several studies suggest that DBT is promising for individuals who have intellectual disabilities and display challenging behaviors, though I think that research is still being completed. So I want to share that this model, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, and employs a co-facilitative approach, which I know that Stephanie and Lawrence are going to talk about more, which means that there is a DD representative. In our case, there are 5 SSAs that rotate months to sit in on these groups, and also a mental health facilitator and therapist. And we do it that way because there is a recognition that there are different levels of expertise here, right? And the DD co-facilitator can be there to sort of help with, I guess, providing some prompting or encouragement. Debbie, what do you tell me, right? To individuals who are
To maybe more simplify some of the information or give some tangible examples to help them, engage in more conversation and be more a part of the discussion and everything.
So individuals, people.
And just that bonding.
Right, you're right. So people who have experience in the DD field, right, who have supported individuals with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities understand that people's learning styles are different, right? That people may need something, may not be understanding the information, but may find another way to help people understand the information. So that expertise is there. The man who really knows the skills and knows how to teach them is there, the therapist. But also, somebody is in the room who knows the individual and spends a lot of time with the individual that's participating. And why do you think that would be helpful? Because the person who is, the support person who is there is not there to do what the co-facilitator does. So why do you think that it would be important for somebody who supports the individual to be in the room? Like a primary caregiver, or somebody who might spend a lot of time with that individual.
I would think it's to help reinforce those skills that are being taught.
To help reinforce those skills. So to learn those skills and help reinforce them when they're not in group.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because, it's only effective if you can take it and apply it, when you go home or wherever you are, on your job. Because we have people working at Goodwill, all these other places. So if they can't use the skills there, right? And so, they get this drive-by in group and then they go home, right? And they spend an hour with Michelle, but then they have to get this reinforcement, and that's where it becomes effective.
And so having an intellectual disability can sometimes make it difficult to remember things, right? To store things, to file things away. And often repetition is really important. So I leave and I forget, but then I have this person here who's with me, who also has learned the skills, who knows how to apply them, who knows what, and someone may say, oh, I can't remember what my homework is, or I can't remember what they said try, right? And so here you then have this person not being successful because of their intellectual disability, not because they can't be. Does that make sense? So that's why it's really important to have somebody in the room, because, I don't go to DBT group. I could not go to Rachel, this is Rachel too, I could not go to Rachel, who is participating in DBT group, and encourage her to do any skills. Because though I've read through the skills a few times, and I know they're there, and I know their intent, I do not know them. And I certainly don't know how they're applied in group. And so, the person who, you guys have known a couple people who have participated, but, they come home, and they're, trying to apply this thing, and you have no idea what that is. And so what's unique about the people who we support that's different than people who don't need the level of support? So, in other words, you guys are providing support to people who have 24/7 support, right? For the most part. And is that typical for people who generally don't have intellectual disabilities, that they have that level of support? No, it's not, right? And so you have these people, and so often when that happens, you have this unintentional maybe power over, sort of, right? You're powerful over somebody, which is not what we want to be, and it's not what we do. But so this person is trying to do this one thing, and these people might be saying, hey, it's time for you to get ready. Hey, it's time for you to get ready. Hey, and they might be trying to practice a skill, right? That you know nothing about. And so this would be another reason that it would be really important, right? So that you're able to sort of respect their efforts also, so that people don't fail. So yeah.
It also allows for a closer relationship between the
Absolutely.
person and the caregiver.
Absolutely.
And it would build more trust, more safety.
You and I are in this together. We're doing this together. Right? We both are practicing these skills, and we, I do think that is so, very, very good point.
Well, I was gonna add too, just like, and I'll touch on it a little bit later as well, just it really validates the importance of consistency. And so, like Rachel had said, this population struggles to kind of remember things and file things away and say, oh, wait, that's what I need to practice. Oh, that's not.
Oh, and praise and encouragement and
Yes.
celebrating the fact that people are being successful and are doing this, right? So there's that validation piece of it.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my favorite quotes by Ross Greene is, "People do well if they can." And if we set things up so that people can do well, they will do well, right? If we can adapt learning materials so that people can actually achieve what they're expected to achieve, if we can provide people with encouragement and validation and, you know, those sorts of things, if we can set it up so that people can do well, they will do well. And so essentially, that's what we try to do with this program. We try to set it up so that people can do well.
All right. Okay, so we're going to break down the word dialectics. I know that maybe some people aren't too familiar with that word, and that is okay. So Webster's dictionary says, defines dialectic, a system of argument or exposition in which the conflict between contradictory facts or ideas is resolved. So, with a lot of these individuals, there are some, contradictory things that they experience, just like we all do. And I'll get into some examples. So in DBT, however, for any point an opposite position can be held, i.e. old versus new. You're not converting old to new, but incorporating old with new. So it talks about a level of balance, to being able to still have some of the things that maybe have worked, but also incorporating some other things that might also continue to work. So some examples. You can be independent, but also want help. You may have a valid reason for believing what you believe, and you may still be wrong or incorrect.
Explain that.
You may have a valid reason for believing what you believe. So, so what that could mean is that we see or experience something and we respond to it in an emotional way, and so therefore that response is very real to us. That feeling is very real to us. We may feel like that is absolutely correct, this is what our emotions are saying, but we have concrete facts in our environment that might not support that. So that kind of cater to what you were thinking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead, Lawrence, take it away.
No. We really what we want to do is try to avoid being judgmental.
There you
right?
go.
And so terms like right, wrong, or just those labeling terms. We want to, because what it does, and we try to tell them, is it incarcerates it. You can't change if you're in a box, right? And so we talk about that. So so it's either or. And if it looks real to me.
Thank you, Lawrence. Much better at that. So, at times you need both control and tolerate your emotions. You can accept the stuff the way that you are and still want to change. You can disagree with the rules and still follow the rules. The day can be sunny and it can rain. It's very familiar here in Cincinnati. So it can snow and then we can have a hurricane. Who knows? Okay, so those are just some of the examples of how dialectics can play out in our day-to-day lives. We experience some of these we experience ourselves, but we don't realize that. So we can be independent, but still also want help. So that's kind of explaining those polar opposites sometimes, and how we can connect and find the balance between the two by not being judgmental and putting labels or values to a situation, to a feeling, to an emotion. Okay, so there are in the basic components of DBT, there are some treatment targets, but in addition, before those treatment targets are addressed, like I said, that these treatment targets are addressed by the skills group, the individual therapy, and the phone coaching, which I had mentioned earlier. So these are the specific targets that DBT, whoa, jumping up all over the place on me. So these are the specific targets that DBT focuses on. First and foremost is life-threatening behaviors. So that could be suicidal behavior, overdose attempts, cutting, anything like that. And also what's called non-suicidal self-injury, or NSSI. So that could be some of the behaviors I had mentioned earlier: cutting, burning, head banging, pulling out the hair, things like that. So those are definitely addressed first, because that, of course, as we all know, safety is the most important thing, and maintaining somebody's physical safety is definitely very important. So those are the specific behaviors that are targeted first, because you want to make sure that the individual is going to be able to keep themselves physically safe. Because for some individuals, that type of behavior is a coping skill, or is a way to express their emotions. So those behaviors are targeted first.
May I ask something?
Yes.
Okay, so in group, which again, you can stop me if you're getting it, but in group, you really talk about skills,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about the specific skills that people use to maybe reduce life-threatening behaviors, right? But then in therapy, you're really dealing with the individual
Yes.
piece of that, right? So in one-on-one therapy, it's the individual piece of that, and in group, it's here are the skills, and then you know what skills he's taught, and you say, hey, how about this one? Right?
Exactly.
And so I guess, did we share that this is a 2-time-a-week experience?
yeah.
Did we share that?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No, we definitely expand upon those things in individual therapy, and that might also incorporate, try and incorporate maybe some different things that have helped them in the past or that could help them. All right, so the next one is therapy interfering behaviors. So those are behaviors that, as it says, impact the quality of the therapy that the individual is receiving. So that includes being late to appointments, not showing up to appointments, not fully engaging in the session. You know, of course, if somebody isn't ready to talk about something, that is definitely respected. You know, we don't want to force somebody to talk about something that they don't feel comfortable talking with, especially if you don't know that person very well. So we definitely don't force somebody to talk about something that they are not ready to or they're not comfortable talking about. So, but there is a slight difference between, you know, not being ready or comfortable to talk about something and then just not engaging entirely. So those are some of the examples of the therapy interfering behaviors. So then the next one are quality of life behaviors. So that could mean having a job, financial stressors. Sorry, can you see? Okay. Having a job, financial stressors, housing stressors, other things that would impact the individual's quality of life. So, and then the next part is the skills acquisition, which again, Mr. Lawrence is going to go on is going to describe in a little bit more depth. So if you guys, if you're interested, I listed, you know, in the PowerPoint as well, just where we got some of these statistics from. So behavioral tech is a part of the Linehan Institute. That's Marsha Linehan's program, and she was the one who came up and with the DBT. So, go ahead.
So with therapy interfering behavior, I could see myself becoming a part of that, right? Or any support person becoming a part of that. So if a person can't get to an appointment, or, right, because people that we support, they need our support to get places often, not always, right, but often, or to attend an appointment, but if someone misses an appointment because someone can't bring them in, or someone, would that be therapy interfering?
Yes, absolutely, transportation issues.
So this is also important, I think, with this program, which is unique to this program, which is sometimes the people that we support are not always responsible for not being able to make it where they're going, right? Or not yet, this might be called therapy interfering, which could be a failure, right? I mean, and so I look at that, when I think about therapy interfering, I think about how important it is for all parties involved with this program to be participating, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
because otherwise, Otherwise, so if the support person is the person who's sort of the barrier, or not the barrier, and that is not what I mean, but if the person can't find the means to get there, or the person to help them, or then that could then turn into therapy interference, because it's a barrier.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. So, and if there is a policy in place that if an individual has missed or is missed like several appointments, or is repeatedly late, or doesn't call when they are late, then we enter them into what's called pre-commitment, in which they are not allowed to, or they are taken out of the group to help address maybe some of those barriers and kind of identify what those are to get them to be able to join back into the group.
So the reason this really strikes me is because this is sort of what I did not sort of, but it really is what I did my capstone project on when I got my master's degree, which was on mental health services for individuals with intellectual disabilities, but I really focused a lot on the barriers. And a huge barrier is transportation, support in getting there, support in achieving goals. It's a huge barrier for people who we support, and even to receive any services at all. And so I think it's a really important component of this project, and I just wanted to emphasize it.
Absolutely.
Because it does sort of, and then that person, because they're often dependent on other people's support, are also dealing with this other human being, right? So the support person is also a human being who may need to go to a doctor's appointment, or who then has to prioritize, and so I just think that's a really important thing to emphasize as it relates to commitment and what might get in the way. Back to that therapy interference.
And it's probably best to kind of, if you have someone participating in this, to have kind of a plan B, because, things happen sometimes with, I could be sick on a day that it's,
correct.
I'm providing transportation.
And you're allowed to be
for a
sick
person.
also,
Yeah, because, the commitment, this is a committed program, and we'd hate for individuals not to be able to continue to participate, not from their own, reasons, but because of transportation. So, having a plan B in the event,
that
would always
really
be good.
Put like in an orientation, should have a plan B.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
We always have CTC. I know sometimes there's some issues with scheduling that, but there's maybe it's a physical person that's your backup, but you could have multiple backups to see what
Or just
needs to be
having
in place.
a multiple backup tiered plan even. Oh, that didn't work, then this. Which is really interesting because, with the resilience model, which some of you guys might be coming to that training tomorrow, there is a strategy called the 3 Ps, which is a predict, practice, and plan B sort of. And I think at Bastion, I think we've done trainings where we've talked about that. And we usually talk about that for the individual we support, but we also, an agency needs that, right? A support person needs that. What if this doesn't work? What if I can't do this? Then what? Yes.
Okay, so the next is just some assumptions about clients. Is of course we don't want to put a label or put any kind of value to anything, so we just approach this.
And I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
I get it.
All right. So I also want to say that the DD community does not generally use the word client. So we have almost everybody in this room is a DD person, and as you see, people cringe and they, but really,
It's different.
the mental health field does, and it's okay. So I wanted to share that.
What does the DD population, what do you use?
Well, the person, individual, for a while there was consumer, some people still use it. But client is a word that self-advocates with developmental disabilities asked us to stop using. Some of us understand that and some of us don't, but we don't have to, right? It doesn't really, we do not have to understand that it is a term that makes people feel less than or uncomfortable, and so we don't use it. But it's okay, because that is the term that you, that is.
For everyone.
Right. Yeah.
You're no sick.
There you go, exactly. some of the assumptions just about the individuals who are participating is that these individuals who are participating are doing the very best that they can. Kind of relating back to what Rachel had said. If we can kind of promote that environment and build them, and circle them around with, and all of that support, and if they want to, then they are going to be doing the best that they can with what they have. So people also want to improve. People need to do better, try harder, and be more motivated to change, because as we all know, that is how change takes place, is we have to want to do it. Nobody can make us do it, but we have to want to be able to change in order to make that change. People may not have caused all of their problems, but they can solve them anyway, or they have to solve them anyway. So, sorry, okay. A lot of these people, especially in the DD population, they may not have the best environmental supports, so that of course is not their fault, so that may or may not be something that they can solve, but there are other things that they can solve within themselves. New behavior has to be learned in all relevant contexts, which relates to the practice and the consistency. That's very, very important. All behaviors, actions, thoughts, and emotions are caused, which is a link back to the cognitive behavioral therapy context that I touched on before. I really emphasize how all of those are related to each other. So if we feel a certain way, if we feel sad, our thought could be, man, I feel really sad today. So my action might be, I might go eat a gallon of ice cream, or I might isolate for a little bit. So that kind of really breaks down how all of those are related. Last but not least, figuring out and changing the causes of behavior work better than judging and blaming. I went to a training several years ago, and the basis of that particular training is there's meaning behind all behavior. So that is also another component of CBT. We all do things for a reason. It doesn't make that reason justified, but there's a reason why we do the things that we do. And especially in these particular populations, like I said before, especially with the non-suicidal self-harm or suicidal gestures, that could be their way of trying to communicate, that could be their way of expressing their emotions, or that could be their way of coping. So that really helps to kind of help us to make that change and help them to learn new skills to incorporate into their lives and know that their feelings, and teach them that their feelings are validated, so that their feelings are okay. We all have emotions. All of our emotions are going to happen whether we want them to or not. So it's natural to feel that way. But what makes the difference is how you communicate that and how you cope with that. So, yeah. Okay. Some of the core strategies, again, is about balance between acceptance of the client or individual or person, and the expectation that the client needs to change. Add validation and teaching the client self-validation skills. So validating basically means what you are feeling is okay. It's the basic premise, the basic message. Again, we all experience emotions to a varying degree. So, but it's basically this model teaches that whatever you are feeling is okay. Whatever you're feeling is okay. And we all get validated in one form or another. So, like for example, a performance evaluation is a way to validate because it goes through different characteristics, different tasks, different goals, and you are told, kind of how you're evaluated, how your performance was. Or even as something as simple as someone saying, I like your outfit today. That is a simple validation. And these individuals often don't know how to validate themselves. And so that is why their emotions are just so out of control. So the basis especially with the individuals with borderline personality disorder, one of the theories is they grew up in an invalidating environment. They were told that their emotions were not okay. So you can imagine how stressful that can be if they are feeling a certain way and yet you're being told that what you are feeling is not okay, and you are not taught an appropriate way to communicate that or to express that. And so that could lead an individual to engage in some of those unsafe behaviors or make those unsafe remarks because that's how they know how to validate themselves. And so this really focuses on, teaching the client or the individual to validate themselves and say, okay, I'm going to be okay today, or I had a good day today, I did this well, I contributed, which is one of the skills.
And again, I think it's unfortunate, it's sad that I think that is also, that invalidation is also a side effect sometimes of having a developmental or intellectual disability.
Absolutely.
Of sometimes being socially isolated, right? And you can stop me if I'm not on the right track. Or, just people not taking your feelings seriously. Yes?
Oh, I
Or
absolutely
people,
agree.
I don't know, give me some other examples, but I mean, there are lots of people in this room with a lot of experience, but I think that there are parallels, not between people with intellectual or developmental disabilities and people with borderline personality disorder, but with the experience, right? That might lead to an emotional response that might seem over the top, under the top, or not relevant on some level, right? To gain validation. So,
Absolutely.
So I often hear these parallels. Not again, not that someone has a borderline personality disorder or the same characteristics that are manifested as a part of that, but that there are some parallels of the possible cause or the what?
Behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay. And then again, the behavior therapy of teaching how to change some of those thoughts and how to cope with emotions that happen. So DBT has 4 stages. As you can see, moving from the first stage, of course, is moving from being out of control of one's behavior back to being in control. So when individuals enter, they often do feel out of control of their behaviors. They might be engaging in some of those unsafe behaviors. So learning how to gain control over those behaviors and learning how to incorporate different skills to help them cope. So some other components of the first stage talk about reducing and eliminate life-threatening behaviors. Again, that is that first very important piece of making sure that person is going to be physically safe. Reduce and eliminate behaviors that interfere with treatment. So again, addressing if there's any transportation barriers, definitely addressing that. Identifying a plan B in case if that doesn't work. Helping the person to become familiar with therapy if they've never engaged in a therapy session before, kind of providing education about what therapy actually is, what to expect, those kind of things. Decrease behavior that destroy the quality of life and increase behaviors that make a life worth living. Again, that's part of that self-validation piece and that validation. Learn skills that help people control attention, start new relationships, improve current relationships, or end bad relationships, understand emotions, and tolerate emotional pain.
Questions, anybody? Comment?
Concerns, worries, or comments? Okay. Stage 2, moving from being emotionally shut down to experiencing emotions fully. So this talks about being able to at least put a name to your emotion and understanding how that emotion has an impact upon your body, it has an impact upon other people.
So when you walk into Stephanie's office, there are posters and pictures and lists and diagrams, and there's just this all over the walls, and every time I go over there, it starts looking more and more like wallpaper, and and you can tell that there's really an effort to help people that you're supporting really learn these things in various ways, right?
Yes.
And how to make these connections. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And understand emotions, for instance. There's a lot of that. And what they are.
And with respect to the DD population, we understand that everybody learns differently. Everybody has different learning styles and learns at a different rate. So definitely, I'm sure Mr. Lawrence does the same thing, but we definitely try to cater to that individual. Not to put you on the spot again, but we definitely try to cater to that individual. So for example, I might use more sensory-based items with an individual because that they really enjoy that. They like the feeling of that. They like that hard pressure. And with another person, we might just kind of sit there and talk the whole time. So it's different for everybody. And yes, using posters and diagrams and graphs, maybe an interpretive dance here or there, you know, just whatever works.
Would that distract some people?
I'm sorry?
Would that
Having all
distract
those on the walls, having all that stuff on the walls.
It doesn't really, actually, it hasn't really, I haven't noticed any distractions. If I feel like it might be a distraction, I definitely do take it down. But actually, to kind of, I've seen it be a little bit more helpful than not. So I haven't heard anything, and if I feel like it might be too much, then I definitely take it down and put it back up if I need to. So, All right. So stage 3, building an ordinary life, solving ordinary life problems. So this talks about how kind of again engaging that controlling piece and building further upon that, and assisting these individuals to solving their basic life day-to-day problems. Because keep in mind, they may not have been taught the skills, or they may have developed some of their own methods that maybe were not the best. And so we want to make sure that they know how to solve those problems effectively. Because we all experience issues from day to day. And so this helps them to really learn how to just solve those kind of problems and help them live a life worth living. So, last one, moving from incompleteness to capacity for joy and connection. So this is helping them to build those relationships with other people, really building upon the skills that they have learned to, again, help them communicate better, help them solve basic life problems, help them to maintain some of those relationships, and help teach them to repair relationships if something has happened.
So that's a really interesting one, because one of the things that I often hear about, let's say, an individual that I know that you guys support is, she just can't enjoy where she is, right? She just can't, she can't get that. It's always, I need a different kind of joy. This isn't satisfying me, even though this might have been the end result of maybe a desired event, it just isn't, and then I gotta move on to this, and then I gotta move on to this, and I just don't know how to just enjoy and take in this experience.
Let it happen.
And I think that is something, that probably fits into that stage 4.
Yeah, definitely, just letting emotions happen, experiencing emotions to their fullness, knowing that emotions are okay, and allowing them to happen, as well as taking in incorporating your surroundings, being in the present moment definitely adds to that connection of the individual and the rest of the world around them, for sure. All right, so we have talked about, we talked about the program a lot. So the 3 main parts, of course, weekly individual therapy sessions with either myself, Mr. or Mr. Lawrence.
She keeps saying it.
I know.
Mr.
Sorry, would you prefer something else?
Lawrence.
Sir Lawrence. Sir Lawrence.
I think Sir Lawrence.
Sir Lawrence. All right. Myself or Lawrence. There we go. Weekly group skills training with Lawrence, co-facilitated by him, as well as our rotating out SSAs such as Debbie and Kristen and Kelly and Jet Ski, but she's not here, so that's okay. So both. I'm not the first one that came up with that. So this is a weekly commitment. So so we need to really make sure that that is communicated. So it's weekly individual sessions as well as the weekly group skills training. And also the telephone consultation. So that is another element of that, which is for outside of treatment sessions. So each of the therapists have a pager, and there are specific hours that are set aside for the individual to contact their therapist in between those certain designated hours to, and it's to help remind them kind of what they've learned, remind them of the skills. And this is meant to be before the person engages in their targeted or unsafe behavior. So if it happens after they've engaged in that behavior, then we of course make sure that they're safe. Make sure that they're not going to continue that behavior, and kind of talk about how they're going to continue to keep themselves safe. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
So you just offer that option up and everybody has a number and they know they can call
Yep.
anytime? Everybody?
Yes, everybody, yeah. So at least what I do is I have a sheet printed out that says, this is the purpose of phone coaching. Which it's not meant to be an extra therapy session. It's meant to help the person kind of stop before and provide that extra support outside of session, just to
So,
say.
hey Stephanie, I'm feeling this way.
Yes, exactly. Hey, I feel like I'm about to engage in some self-harm. Or hey, I feel like I'm ready to punch myself in the face. What do we need to, I'm really struggling right now. And so a common conversation that I would have would be, okay, so let's remember what we talked about. Remember that you are in a safe place. Remember, who's a safe person that you can also reach out to. What were some of the skills that may have helped you before? Is there a way that you can engage in those skills again? You will get through that. That kind of support. So, another important thing to note is that attending DBT is a year-long commitment. So the first 6 months with the group is just, again, Lawrence is going to talk more about that, is just a basic, a basic teaching of the skills. And then the second time around, I believe, is just the reinforcement of the skills that were taught. So,
I have a question.
Sure.
As far as how your guys' model, how you study, you talk about the stages, then you have this idea of individual therapy and this group skills. So I'm trying to think of a parent here.
Yeah.
So if you're moving from one stage to the next, and you have this individual and this group piece,
Mhm.
is it more like, how do you know when you're progressing to the next stage, I guess? Because I'm assuming in a group, you're going to have possibly people at different technical stages. So where does that idea of progressing to a different stage come in?
So at least,
That makes sense.
yeah, no. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because, it's a lot of information, of course. So that, at least for an individual therapy, what I look for is that decrease in that behavior, their targeted behavior. So it could be, again, that self-harm, things like that. So making sure that they are able to keep themselves safe. It is very individualized.
So is that more that idea of like progressing from like one stage to the next?
Yeah.
It fits more into the individual therapy piece than necessarily the group.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is a little challenging to explain, but that is definitely catered to the individual because, again, people progress at different paces.
Right.
There is no set time frame of
And that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
You're saying it's a year, are we talking like there's a set time frame?
And
that
some
you're-
people some people will go through the first 6 months and choose not to do the second 6 months, right?
Mhm.
And some
Oh,
people,
okay.
and so it does happen that way,
Yeah.
that people say, okay, I think I've gotten as much out of this as
Right, absolutely.
and as a team, when we meet after, let's say, a group therapy session, a conversation may ensue.
Right.
Do you think at this point that, Jack has just gotten as much out of this as
Right.
possible and,
So-
or Jack's expressing the desire to leave the group?
Right.
And that does come up, so I imagine those stages are in mind, but I don't
Yeah.
think that we say, well,
It's not like a set.
Right.
I'm almost thinking almost to like.
right, okay,
Right.
you've advanced to stage 2,
Yes,
and now you've advanced to
exactly.
stage 3. I don't think
I've
I've heard that,
hospitalization sometimes.
Which-
or
but I
something.
wonder, do you do that in your notes and stuff?
For the stages, we
Yeah.
talk about well, and in the general, because we also have a general DBT program, and they focus they're put a little bit more emphasis on the stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but
Okay.
we do incorporate that is definitely incorporated, maybe not, we don't put as much emphasis
Yeah.
on, this person is in stage 1, okay, this person is in
Gotcha.
stage 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's focused more on the individual progress. So have those behaviors decreased? Has that target behavior decreased? Are they, utilizing the skills outside of the therapy sessions? Have they been able to cope with a stressful event? You know, so those kind of things are a little bit more focused on rather than, okay, person's in stage 1 for the next week or so, you know. But we do definitely evaluate if somebody's in the group and we feel like, you know, the one time through had done work, you know, made a world of a difference, you know, and then we talk about if we feel like, okay, do we think they might benefit from another round? So generally, the expectation is a year-long commitment because, you know, again, with this particular population, just helping to reinforce those skills and helping to validate them and helping them to practice them.
And some people actually stay longer. is
Yes,
that right?
yes, that has also happened too. That's also happened. So where some people have gone through just a couple of times, and that's really just kind of speaks to where they are and how they process things, and if we feel like that's very helpful for them.
I don't even know the answer to this. Do people still have to take a break in the middle and then go back?
It's recommended that we suggest that individuals take a break if they have gone through maybe once or twice, just to kind of give them the opportunity to be able to practice those skills without going to the group. So we do give them that option, and we do recommend that just, again, as far as giving them the opportunity to implement the skills outside of the group and outside of session.
So I think it's just, maybe we should just, for just a second, let everybody, DBT is a fidelity, how do you pronounce, like, just sort of think,
Fidelity-based?
it's a fidelity-based program. And so the effort to create this adaptive program has been sometimes challenging because it's you can't call it DBT if you're not maintaining the fidelity. So if you're not maintaining clearly Marsha Linehan's intent, right? When she created this, and the structure, and there's a whole manual or module, based workbook that we work out of, and it has been adapted to meet the needs of people we support, but carefully adapted.
Yes.
So it still fits the
So what-
qualifications of the evidence-based model.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So Lawrence comes to group with kind of like a lesson plan, if you will.
Yeah.
And then it becomes first, so you're absolutely right. And then when they go to therapy, Stephanie personalizes that information. And so the stages, they monitor, but it's not like, oh, you were absolutely right.
It's not like the whole group's advancing to stage 2
Right,
together.
no,
Right.
right. Lawrence is gonna move them through, like,
Right.
he's got his thing, and that's what you're gonna do that.
Yeah.
And what we've
You
endeavored to do with this population is to slow it way down. Because you have individuals within the group, right? And so their progression is not based on a set standard. For example, I may not progress as fast as Rachel progresses, but yeah, probably not, right? But I'm still, because we come with different diagnosis, we come with different, and so it's important that we look at each other,
Right.
yeah. So.
Yeah, we come with,
Yeah.
everybody comes with different support
Right,
levels. We have individuals who have entire teams of people surrounding them, and we have some other individuals who might have 1 or 2 people that support them. So, we definitely take that into consideration. There's definitely more barriers to this population than there are to others, to maybe the general population. So those are some things that we take into consideration too.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of, because I know the one family who asked me about this, and then when I found out this thing like this is here, I know she's thinking like, is this something like, kind of like the level system, that you would get like a partial hospitalization?
Oh, yeah.
That's just what she's used to, and that's
Sure,
what I'm trying to find out,
sure.
how is that different from this, is that actually kind of playing in here, but it doesn't sound like that's the case at all. So that would be a completely different idea for
Completely
the
different.
family.
Yeah, completely
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely, so.
So I wonder, Lawrence whispered in my ear, if people might want to take like a 5-minute break. And do you want to do that? Okay. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back in about 5 minutes.
That's not his first name. His
Right.
first name isn't Mr.
Yeah. So we want to talk about the group and what they actually get in group. They come in a group once a week, right? And they get instruction of all the modules which I'll talk about, but they get it on a macro scale, right? I mean, So they get it. And then when they go see their therapist, it's micro. So they're approaching their individual issues or problems or things they're encountering. I'm having a problem with mom, or I'm having problems at the job, or whatever. That's what they talk to their therapist about. You know, in a group setting, we're mainly focusing on the skills and how to apply those skills. Most people, when they hear they're going to come to group, they're apprehensive. I don't want to go sit in group with all these people, and I don't know anything about it, and and I don't want to tell them all my business. And what I found in the 3 years I've been doing group is that the DD population is no different than any other population. And the program that we're talking about works for everybody. I haven't seen it not work. I was at the movie on Friday night, and my wife says, "How do you know them?" I said, "Well, yeah, it's a friend of mine, right?" Well, they were in the group, right? And they're there functioning, and they're doing things, and they're waiting on people, and I just, and I felt inside, I said, oh, yeah. Because, you feel good, right? So they're able to function, and they're able to get out there and do all these things. So you have the stigma, people are apprehensive, and all these things, and we want to wipe all that away, when they come to group, so that they can get what they need. So, there are 4 modules, taught in 4 modules: the mindfulness module, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness, right? We was talking about distress tolerance a second ago, and that's really, it's just stressful situations, things you're going through. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this, and so we're going to teach skills to help them make it through, right? Mindfulness is really kind of trying to stay regulated, trying to stay balanced, right? Because sometimes, things in life can get you out of balance, and so staying balanced. And emotional regulation is, how do I manage life? How do I manage what I feel? Because we talk about different emotions. Anger, some of them are very extreme. Anger, frustration, disappointment, sadness, depression, and all these things. How do I manage that? And interpersonal effectiveness, which really centers around relationships. How to keep your good relationships good, how to identify relationships that are no good for you, that are toxic, relationships that we need to get rid of. So in those 4, you can go to the next slide. Those 4, they focus on solving problems, validation, which is something we talk about repeatedly, right? In group, change, and then acceptance. Because some things are, as a young folk say, it is what it is. It's not going to change. And so we focus, those are the treatment strategies. So we want to focus on problem solving, validation, which is what I'm feeling right? Or do I just take it for granted? What I share with them in the group is that, I can't trust my feelings. I tried, and it didn't work, right? So I have to check myself, check my feelings, make sure it's right, make sure that what I'm doing is appropriate for this situation, right? I'm not saying what I feel is wrong, because maybe I should be in after I check it out, right? So I have to make sure that what I'm feeling is appropriate for this situation, right? Before we got started standing, I'm nervous. Is that the right feeling? Right? Check the facts, right? You got everything you need, right? So check the facts, and we just progress from there.
Thanks for validating. Goodness gracious.
So this is a slide I kind of talk to when I'm talking to our group members, right? And talk about navigating life and how they deal with things, because they all come from different directions. They're all dealing with different things. Some of them, have family problems. Some of them have problems on their jobs, or, just a host of things. And so we talk to them about life happens. You're not in control of life. We want to get to that place of acceptance. Look, You walk out the door, life just happens, right? And we talk to them about that, and we want to get them to grasp that, right? And once they get there, it's okay, when life happens, what do you do with it? How do you manage it? And I'll come back to this slide, because in this slide, we actually talk about all the modules.
And you're trying to elicit responses this whole time, right?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So,
I mean, you're asking that question. When life happens, how, or whatever I don't know, what's an example of that? Like,
yeah.
Do you give an example of when life happens so that people respond to you?
I do. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So here's what we're talking about, Wise Mind, which is the first module, right? And I keep referring to that. Wise Mind focuses on 3 states of mind. 3 states of mind, which is their emotions and the facts. So my emotions are centered around those feelings. Anger, frustration, disappointment, all those things. And we tell them that's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be angry. It's okay, and if they want to share in the group, they can share. If they don't want to share, they don't have to share, you know? But most group members, after they start feeling comfortable, they begin to share. And so what we began to say is, my feelings should always be accompanied by facts. My feelings should always have facts with them. And when you do have feelings and facts together, that puts you in what we call wise mind. One of the examples we use in group is Spock, right? Star Trek. They like that. Of course, most of the group members are into the
Star Wars?
No, the Hermione thing. What's it called?
Oh,
Harry Potter, right? Which has 3 characters, and I still haven't watched it yet, and I get beat up for that every week, right? So you have, but I talk about Star Trek with them, right? And you have Spock, who is rational-minded. Then you have Dr. McCoy, you know, he comes in there, Captain, the ship's gonna burn up. You know, he's emotional-minded. And then you have Captain Kirk, who is the wise-minded, and he takes what Spock gives him, right? And he takes what Dr. McCoy gives him, and he makes a wise-minded decision. And so we use that example, and that's even that slide we went away from, right? We talked about here when they come over and they develop their feelings. We talk about, are you in wise mind? Are you in wise mind? And so, I was talking to you a second ago, even in your day program or whatever you are, you can have up a poster of the 3 states of mind, which is huge because, you know, mindfulness, this first module, is taught between all the other modules. So it's the first module they go through, mindfulness, and then we go to so we do mindfulness, then we go to that first module, which is emotional regulation. Then we do mindfulness again, right? Then we go to distress tolerance, and then we do mindfulness again, and then we go to interpersonal effectiveness. Then we go back to mindfulness, and we go through it a second time. And some group members, they grasp it quick, and you start seeing them pick up on it. And some, you know, you take your time, and that's when we talk about progression. And each person in the group progresses at his or her own speed. You know, question. If you got any questions while I'm going through this, by all means, shoot them out there because I know what I thought. So mindfulness is the first module that we talk about, and mindfulness helps us balance things out. And we talk about mindfulness repeatedly, over and over and over with them. And we use very vivid examples. I use the examples all the time with them, you know, because some of the people in the BD population, and that's why I love having my co-facilitators there, because some people are very concrete, and sometimes you can get, you know, you can use words that just, they're not, you know, they go over their head, but, you know, when you start talking about mindfulness and these emotions, sometimes I'll come in and I'll say, well, tell me what it is. And I'll come in and I'll walk out the door, I'll come in. And they'll jump in and say, you're angry, right? Because, and it's important to know what that looks like, right? It's important to know what it looks like. I said, okay, you're angry. That's not, and then you come in and, hi, how are you? You know what's going on. And I said, what is that? That's not anger, that's happy, right? Because it's important, because what we want to do is we want them to get familiar with those emotions, because if you are angry and you check the facts and anger is not the appropriate emotion for that situation, you want to change it, right? And so that actually leads to another module that we're talking about, which is emotional regulation.